One more bit of unpackaging and we're ready to assemble. The Powertow is sent completely immobilized to this board to ensure that it makes it to you very safely. So we'll just pop the packing material off the back. That is your 1/2-inch wrench that you use to take this off. Take the washer, lock washer, and rubber protective piece off. To tip this tug forward so that we can assemble the handle and everything else on the back end. This makes it much easier. I'm going to address the packet that came with your tug now. These two pieces, these are going to be used to hold that tug into place. Your assembly manual, instruction manual is inside. It includes things like your warranty, how to put this machine together. Keep this in a safe place. This has valuable information for the lifetime of your tug. The battery hold down kit. This will be used after our battery is charged, and we will use this to securely hold the battery into place. This allows you to quickly change out your battery stand legs. They are threaded, so this actually acts as the nut that the bolt goes into. The rest of the kit has a list on it of the things you should expect to be in there. Inside, lanyard cable. We provide a spare. That's the cable that will open and close the jaws. Battery charger manual. Keep this with your owner's manual. We have some minor assembly parts that we'll get to here in just a moment. Most importantly, we send to you a pair of Allen wrenches. These are important for assembly of the machine, and also they can become important for using the machine in the future. These hooks, which came in your assembly packet, are going to help you set this machine up. This is going to be a lot easier with these. Just gently lift up a little bit on the front of the board, put the hook in place, turn it inwards. And now we're going to do the same thing with the other one. Insert, turn it inwards. Now we take the machine, carefully push it down, and while holding onto the machine, just rotate those hooks into place. Once you do that, you can let go of the machine gently and it'll hold itself in place. This bar serves two purposes. One, to hold the machine in place for this part of the assembly. Two, when this bar is in place, that means these arms are perfectly aligned. This bar will slip right in and out of there. Right now, it's held in firmly with these set screws. Next, we're going to take the handle out of the box. Pull the handle out of the box. The handle has various attachments to it. We'll go ahead and hook these all up in just a moment. Again, everything we send out of here is powder coated, so your paint should look very nice. Always inspect at each step to make sure that there aren't major dings or dents. Almost certainly there won't be, but it's a good time to look. These two bolts will hold the handle on. We use a lock washer, a regular washer on each bolt, and I'm going to set this switch just over here out of the way. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert these bolts into the holes on the handle. It might be just a little bit tight there because these holes are accurately drilled to ensure a good fit. Now, the stand legs. Stand legs are threaded, so they will act as the nut for both of these bolts. I go ahead and make sure our foot is pointing back, and I begin to tighten it up. I use my finger against the hole just to give me an idea of where I am. You might want to do that visually. get it almost too tight, just a little bit snug. I'm going to do my other one. And once again, nearly but not quite tight. I'm going to finish tightening the bolt. Once you feel like you got it tight, give it a little bit more. Never use a breaker bar to tighten down anything that we provide you with an Allen wrench. Finish up tightening up my legs. Get them to where they're very, very snug. Give them about another quarter turn. So nice and tight, quarter turn. Installing the switch. First, we gently remove the electrical connections from the back of the switch. It doesn't matter which way these wires go on. It's not a polarized system. We'll now take the switch, set it up just so, and get our number 2 Phillips screwdriver again. We want to make sure they're snug and a little past snug, but you don't want to go cranking on them with all of your might. Hook the wires back up. On this side of the machine, the clutch cable is attached to the axle with a tie wrap. I'm going to go ahead and clip that. Bring the clutch cable back through the back end of the machine. You'll notice right here that there's a tab. This tab lines up with a hole that is right about here on the bottom of the machine. Clutch cable now can get hooked up to the top. When you pull on the clutch cable, that noise you're hearing is the clutch finding its home position against the frame. When you pull it and release it, you should hear that noise. That means that the clutch is properly adjusted for tightness and for lubrication. Now, we just pull that clutch cable a bit. We thread it on there, about 5 or 6 turns to start with. We'll be adjusting that later. This jam nut will act to lock this in place once we've gone ahead and set it completely. 4 tie wraps have been supplied to secure everything in place. The first one that we put in is about 2-3 inches above the pivot point, and I'm going to go ahead and just capture first the cable that goes to the switch. On the second tie wrap, I'm going to go ahead and do about 2 inches or so below the pivot point. And with this one, I'm going to capture both the cable for the switch and also the clutch cable. So that's going to be secure in place and won't go flopping around on you. Just above the bend in the handle, I'm going to take another tie wrap and put it there. The extra little bit of wire, I'll just give a little twist and put to the side like that. And once again, I'm going to use my last tie wrap, capturing once again both the clutch cable and the wiring harness. So when we're done, we should look like this. All right, now we're going to take off our shift rod. The shift rod is brightly marked. Grab 2 of our push nuts, and now we're going to install. Notice this side says transmission end. We will thread it through the little plastic saddle clamp on the side, swoop it on over, and then we'll insert the other end into the shift handle. Once again, we're in the saddle clamp. We go ahead and follow that down to the transmission, and we go ahead and place that inside. Now, using push nuts, notice the push nut is domed, and we are going to be going the end of the rod this direction so that it pierces through the push nut, and this will hold it firmly into place. We reach under here. Once again, a little bit tough on this table, but you get the idea. And I go ahead and push it into place. I leave it some gap. I do not want that very, very tight. We go back up to the handle, end, and we do the exact same thing. Now we can shift the transmission easily. Now we're going to go ahead and install the return spring. First, break loose the set screws that hold the shipping bar in place. Only about a half turn will be necessary. You'll notice that this bar will now slide easily, very easily back and forth inside the adapter holders. What that means is that these are perfectly in line. Save this, you will need it for later to get this machine set up properly for your plane. I'm going to open the arm a little bit, make this spring a bit easier to put on. There's a hole up in the front of the frame, at the very front there, and we go ahead and hook the spring in, like so. Bring it around to hook on. We're going to go ahead and install the lanyard cable now. The lanyard handle has a hole up at the top. We slip through the little Z-shaped piece so that it is firmly in place. And you'll notice that it can rotate up and down very freely like this, keeping a little bit of tension on there. We go back over to the front arm, pull it back slightly, put it on. You'll notice that this cable is always under tension a little bit at least. And that's exactly what we want to see. All right, now we're going to install the battery. To make sure that we don't have a machine that starts up right away, we make sure that our switch is in the off position. First, I'm going to go ahead, loosen up, and take off the top posts of the battery. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put in the battery hold down spring. Set it against the tire as so. Lift up the battery and gently set it into place. The other part of the battery hold down system has a rubber pad against the top to help protect the battery, and a foot that slides under the blue battery tray, and you snug it up pretty close to that motor. And we take our spring, put it into place. Now, unlike the switch, we do have a positive side and a negative side to the battery. Red wire will go to the positive side of the battery. Black wire will go to the negative side of the battery. Expose the connectors on each side. Pass the rubber boot. Put the washer on top of the connector.
Go.
Now I'm going to go over the basic setup for the lanyard cable and lanyard cable adjustment, and also a little bit on the clutch adjustment. First, let's do the lanyard cable. We pull the handle back into place, so we lock the arm in front. After we lock the arm in front, you might recall from earlier where I mentioned this bar would come in handy. What we're looking for here is this bar to slide into the adapter holders and be able to slip right on through. These bars are not perfect pieces of steel, so you might have to rotate it a little bit here and there. But you can see how even a little tap sends this right through. These two wing nuts and this eye bolt, they adjust the windage of the connection point to make sure these two arms are parallel. If they're not parallel, you will not get this type of action. So what I'm going to do is throw this out of alignment a little bit to show you what I mean. I'm going to take these wing nuts and I'm going to loosen this up. I'm going to loosen this up quite a bit so we can see exactly what happens. These arms are no longer parallel. They look like this. And when I try to get my adapter holder all the way through, you can see how it's binding up. So what we do once again is we tighten this until it gets closer. Oh, or sometimes you get lucky all at once. Now, many people believe that by tightening this up more, they get a more secure fit. Not the case. What happens then is when we tighten it up too much, action point will no longer be parallel. Now, instead of being parallel, they look like this. And once again, I'm not getting these to cooperate. Matter of fact, I can't even get that apart until I start to loosen it. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up a few more turns until I can break it loose. I can still tell by it hitting on the inside that I'm still way too tight. So I'm loosening it up a little bit more. And once again, now I'm to the point where it slides evenly. So once I get to there, I just go ahead, hold this nut in place, and give that one a good twist. You might even want to use a pair of pliers if you really like your fit to give that one last little extra push. The initial setup of your clutch cable is a little bit different. You'll want to be able to pull this almost all the way to the handle. Now, when you first start up your machine, the belt that acts as the clutch is brand new. It's going to be a little bit sticky. So when you first fire up the machine, you fire up the machine with no plane attached and point it in a safe direction. When you adjust the clutch, you'll be using this barrel connector and this little jam nut. I'm not going to go through the full clutch adjustment right now. I'm just showing you where these are. So what you'll do is you'll take this barrel connector and get it to where your clutch is nice and firm, meaning that when you pull that clutch in, the machine just gets up and goes. And when you release the clutch, the machine should sit on the ground and maybe wiggle a little bit on the ground, but it shouldn't be running around on its own. Now, the last step. That's it. We're ready to take this tug off of the board. If you're on the ground, you'll probably be able to motor it off of here. I'm going to use the help. Now we're going to go ahead and do the initial clutch adjustment. For this, you're going to need your 3/8 and 5/16 wrenches. I've got the clutch pretty loose right now because I don't want a runaway machine. Even a couple of threads of tightness on there will be fine. A rule of thumb is if you can get that handle all the way back to this rubber grip, it's going to be safe. But nonetheless, you want to make sure that the very first time you fire this machine up, it's pointed in a direction that if it takes you 2-3 feet to get it to stop, that it's not going to be a problem. That shouldn't happen though. We keep our switch in the off position. We go ahead and go from neutral to forward. And we just push a little bit on the machine and then you can feel that transmission catch into place. And that means that we've gone ahead and shifted into forward. Now I turn on the machine and as you can see it's not moving anywhere. Now if I were to tighten up on this cable, it starts to move. Every now and then, just give the clutch a little bit of a squeeze and you should have some good control on when that tire starts to turn. I'm going to tighten mine up just a little bit more than that because I like a tighter clutch. You're going to set this to your own taste, but when it's sitting still, you don't want it running around on its own, and when you hit the clutch, it should want to go right away. I take my 3/8 and my 5/16 wrench. 5/16 goes on the barrel connector. I'm going to turn the machine off now so you can hear me a little bit better and so I don't accidentally make this machine run away by pulling on the cable. And I give it just a little tweak like that. That's all it takes, just a 1/16 of a turn to lock that into place. So now when I turn on the machine and pick it up, I can immediately go or stop. I pull it into reverse, a little bit of clutch, and once again, I can immediately go or immediately stop. After several times of operation, that belt is going to settle in. You are going to need to redo this adjustment at least once after the belt is worn in. That's it for today.